Ladies and gentlemen, look at that. We're making that, and it's not hard. Well, hello, and welcome to my kitchen. Hey, today I'm going to be making an onion bread. Now, if you wanted to make onion rolls with this, I guess you could do that also. You could probably make buns for hamburgers if you wanted to do that. Got some great ideas here. I've also got great recipe ingredients. Now, folks, it's all about the quality of the ingredients when it comes to making bread. But your basic and, well, the most simple bread that I know of that is a yeast risen bread would be French bread. It's only 4 ingredients. It's flour, water, yeast, and salt. That's it. Nothing else. And it makes such a delicious loaf. And I wanted that kind of delicious bread without the bread itself being different, okay? So I wanted good quality bread for this, and at the same time I wanted to incorporate a great oniony flavor. So I think I have a great idea for how to do that. So as I was thinking up a way to make this recipe, well, I'll just bring it to you here in a moment. As I was coming up with this recipe, I decided we need flavor and we need uniqueness, and so I decided to incorporate that. Now, I would ask you, before we look at the ingredients, please take a look in my description box right underneath this video. That's where the links to my website and other social media that I use. Now, my website's where you're going to get the recipes. Also, you're going to find my Texas Cooking Today merchandise. All of that's going to be right there. And lots of different ways to pay. You can use like a PayPal, you can use Apple Pay, any method that you prefer. So there's a lot of choices. Please take a look at that. Thank you for doing so. Also, if you want to help Texas Cooking Today and help me grow the channel, there can two avenues to do that. My Patreon. Also, I have Wisio, which is kind of like Patreon, except I produce videos. So take a look at both of those. Join me on Facebook and join me as we take a look at these ingredients. Good stuff. Come on over. The ingredients that I have for this recipe today, I have some flour here. Now today I'm going to use an all-purpose flour. A bread flour was probably going to be best for this, but if all you have is all-purpose, go with it. I've got water, olive oil, I've got some yeast, salt, and sugar. Also some garlic and shallots. Now, I was kind of torn. Use shallots or should I use just a plain white onion? I wasn't really sure which way to go, and I thought, you know, either will work perfectly, okay? So you choose whatever you want to use in this recipe. It's going to come out fine, all right? So we've got all of that going for us. Let's get busy making this. Now, I can't do the dough until I've prepared this stuff. Let's do that first. All right, I wanted to pull out kind of a variety of pans here. And this was all about, gee, what pan do we use? Well, I guess it depends on what you got and also just what you're wanting to make. My first intuition today was just grab a big iron skillet, throw a nice wet dough down in there, and let it go at it. All right, and that's probably the direction I'm going to go. But I also wanted to mention you could use loaf pans. You could do sculpted fancy loaf pans. You could do something like this, which would make a really nice roll, okay? That'd be a beautiful onion roll. Or if you wanted to make more of a bun that you could do sliders with, you could do something like this to make a fantastic onion bun, okay? So sky is the limit on what you decide to cook yours in. It's up to you, all right? So choose something you're going to enjoy, something that looks fun, neat, and remember, these little ones cook faster than something like this, which is really big, all right? Just remember that one rule. Other than that, enjoy whatever you would like to make your bread in. Okay, I've gone ahead and prepped my shallot and got the garlic out of the paper. And this is pretty much ready to go except for cutting up my shallots. Now, if you're doing onion, do it the same way. Basically, we're just looking for small pieces of shallot or onion. I'm not looking for big dice on this. And these are kind of wonky, kind of weird to cut. So there's a couple of different ways I could do this. And I'm trying to figure out what I want to do that will work the best. Most shallots are not shaped like this. This thing is shaped more like an onion, okay? Which is kind of odd, all right? So again, not looking for big pieces here. This is something I want well dispersed. It also needs to be cooked properly. Okay, now that we have finished up with the onion, there's one last thing to do. I just need to crush my garlic. All right, I'm just going to do that one piece at a time, like so. I'm going to take that, put it aside. Now, the garlic I'm not going to leave in the bread, but I do want the flavor in the same oil that I'm going to be cooking that onion in. Now, I want to go ahead and get my onion and my garlic cooked up. So what I'm going to do, and as I have taught on many other videos, a lot of times if you want the flavor of garlic in something without having to put the garlic in something, you can still do that. You just need to mix it with a little olive oil, all right? Once the oil of that garlic has infused with the onion, with the oil, then we're going to have all of that flavor right in there with it. Now, the neat thing here is I get the flavor of that garlic in a very light way. At the same time, I'm going to be sweating my onion down in this. I can go ahead and throw the onion in there now, but I kind of like just doing this first, getting it out of the way, and then gently working my onion down to what I want it to be. All right, let's flip this over. It's browning, I can see. There we go. When you get light browning like that, that's when you're done, all right? So you just go ahead and pull that garlic out. Everything we want in the way of garlic flavor is right there in our oil. Yeah. That looks good, doesn't it? So the first thing I want to do is kind of break down this shallot a little bit. And I'm going to do that by sweating it. Then after we've sweated a little bit, we're then going to work on getting a little bit of caramelization going there. I want these to be kind of sweet when they're in the bread. And then after that, they'll just do their own thing. So that's what we're going for. I'll check this every couple of minutes and turn my heat down to low. All right, let's take a look at what we have happening here. Now look, we're getting some color change. There's softening. That's exactly what I'm wanting right here. Need to cook it a little bit more. I'm wanting a little more of that brown coloring happening. And I want them to be a little more translucent than they are. Other than that, I would say my shallots are coming out really well for this, folks. All right, let's take a look again. And this has been maybe 15 minutes in the total cook, but I'm getting beautiful browning there. I've got a nice translucent look on those. That is just right where I want it to be. Okay, so this is going to make a wonderful flavor for that bread as it cooks up. That's exactly what I was hoping to get. Plus, and there's a bonus here. We have just created some sugars that are useful for the yeast right here. I'll turn off my heat, let that cool down as I turn my attention to my dough. All right, I'm ready to start making my dough. Something I want to mention though is that, you know, when we are using salt in a bread recipe, you have to be careful about how much salt goes in there. Salt retards the growth of yeast, all right? In fact, if you put it directly against yeast, it can flat kill it. So we avoid doing that. Now, two things that I'll mention. Number one, don't put your salt directly into the yeast. Put it into the flour, all right? Give it a little stir. All right. So now that I've done that, I can then put my sugar in there, then my yeast. Now, sugar and yeast get along just fine. That yeast is going to eat the sugar. The sugar is going to affect the rising qualities of the dough. And right there, we have everything mixed. Now, a long time ago, we used to do what's called proofing the yeast, and that was when, you know, you could sometimes get yeast that might not be alive, or and you wanted to make sure that it was okay. So we would mix the yeast with a little bit of sugar and water, and if it foamed up, we knew it was good, and that was what we would do. That's called proofing your yeast. You can still do it if you want, but it's really not so necessary these days. Making bread is pretty easy if you have a machine. I recommend it if you've got one. And if you don't, well, consider saving up some money because these things are really worth what they cost. Now, I need my flour. We're down in here. All right. I've got my water here. It's going to go in. And right here, right now, take all those onions along with the oil they cooked in. Oh yeah, because that's what contains that wonderful garlicky flavor. There we go. And the reason I used garlic with this, you may be wondering, gee, why did he do that? The garlic is in the same family, and people often associate the two flavors together. So I thought, okay, it'll be cool just to go ahead and use garlic in this one. It'll be something that works with it. Now, when we're done, we should have a very sticky dough here. That's what I'm hoping for. Alrighty, I thought I'd give you a close-up on what that looks like as it starts kneading up. It looks like, there we go. Look at that. Remember when I said it was going to be kind of sticky? Normally dough will just kind of slip off of the dough hook, but when you see it doing stuff like that, that's a really sticky dough, and it's sticking on the inside of this bowl, and pretty much exactly what I was hoping for. You see, as long as I keep it moving, it'll pull free from the bowl. But the minute I stop it, there we go. Okay, so anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get this off of here and get it down into the bowl I'm going to rise in. Sticky dough. Now you might be wondering, did I put oil or anything like that in this bowl? No, I didn't. And you know, maybe I could have or should have. It doesn't really matter because I'm still going to be using a spatula to scrape it off of the bowl, whether I put oil in there or not. I've kind of learned that's sort of the way when it comes to a high hydration dough. Now, the other thing I'll mention, never rise your dough in a metal bowl. Yeast and metals do not get along with each other. Use a plastic, a ceramic, or a glass bowl. Here we have a glass bowl, and I'm going to cover it so we can see it. There we go. All right, it appears that we are at that point where we're going to just rise this thing up. Here's the thing. I want this to double in bulk at least, or more. In other words, I want it to fill that lower bowl, okay? Well, it's a little less than half full now, so if it fills it, it's going to be a little more than double in bulk. And I'm good with that. Now, after it's done that, we're just going to take it, we're going to remove it from this bowl to our skillet, and we're going to then bake it up. Now, generally, breads bake at high temperatures, so you're looking at 400 to 450 most of the time on most breads. All right, now as far as baking time, it depends on your altitude. And it's the same way with the rising time on this. It depends on your altitude, the temperature, the ingredients in the loaf, all right? The yeast itself, some yeasts are slower than others. I'm using a fast rising commercial yeast. That's another thing I want to mention. Please, if you buy yeast at a grocery store, you probably pay a lot of money for it because you buy it in little envelopes or maybe a small jar that they overcharge for. So let me tip you off. For the price of one of those little jars, you can get 2 large commercial bags of yeast. It's enough to make, dozens of loaves. So what you can do is split the cost with someone else and order 2 of those. So they often come in pairs, and that way you can split it and it doesn't cost you very much. I recommend like a restaurant supply company. There's some online restaurant supplies that you can order your yeast from, and it's inexpensive. Don't pay a lot of money for yeast. Making bread should not be expensive. I pay for 25 pounds of flour, I think it's like $8 and some change. And for my yeast, I think it's a couple of pounds of the yeast that I buy at a time, and that usually runs me $4.50. All right, so your bread shouldn't be much to make. Watch closely what you're paying, because buying things in bulk and purchasing from, like I said, restaurant supplies can often save you a lot of money. All right, this just needs time. I'm just gonna go and do other things, let it do what it does, and later on, we're gonna heat up the oven and cook this up. That'll be cool. Hey, look at that. It has risen just a little bit. All right, and that's exactly what we were looking for. Look at that. Look at the character in the dough. And I'm gonna say this, you're gonna get more of this kind of thing going on as you have a higher hydration. A dough that is low hydration is going to be one that doesn't give you quite as much of the big air pockets, but it will give you a much more smooth, even dough. So, you know, just depending on how you want the character of your bread. Now, I like a bread that's crusty on the outside with real big air pockets on the inside and having them of all different sizes. And I really like that. So a bread with that kind of character is really neat. Now, this stuff was really wet earlier, hard to handle. Usually, most doughs will get a little more handleable after they have risen the first time. Handling this is not such a tough thing. It may be stuck to the glass, so I'll have the rubber spatula there. But one thing I will mention, go ahead, get a little flour on your hands. It's going to get a little on the board when you do that, okay? And you want that because you need a place to put the dough and you don't want it just sticking everywhere, all right? So we have our place. Now this, if you want, you can punch it down. It's kind of old-fashioned, but you can do that. Doesn't hurt. It's kind of fun, really. Let kids punch the middle of the dough. I enjoyed that when I was young. There we go. Yeah, look at that. It's not sticking all over me anymore. So that is some really cool dough. Now, I said, there it is. All right. So what I'm going to do is just take this and kind of turn it under. It's looking really pretty. This will make a really cool single loaf if I wanted to do it that way, and would fill that pan really nicely. I am going to pare it down just a little bit though, because I want to do some other things. Now, what I'm looking for, just a little nodule of dough, nothing real big like that, to set in the bottom of a dish like that. And that way you get kind of that little dinner roll kind of thing going on. Those are really cool. If you want to do something maybe a little bit larger than that, all right, okay, something like that would really be more appropriate to a dish like this, because it's going to fill it up really nice and give you a pretty bun. And so actually that is sort of my goal. That's the reason I cut those. And then we have this little guy right here that's going to go in the middle of the skillet. All that I need to do is already done, okay? Except for I want to put a little olive oil in each one of these. It's going to help them to release. It'll also give the outer crust a little bit more character. A little dollop in each one. There we go. And then in the bottom of my pan, so just going to rub that around a little bit. You could do butter on this also. A lot of folks like to do that. All right. Now, I just need to get my dough where my dough goes. Right there for that one. These little ones, one right there, one right there. I'm just going to kind of set them in the middle, press them down a little. These the same way. Because you saw how that dough filled up that big bowl earlier. It's going to do the same thing here. We just got to allow it to do what it does. Now, if you wish to use a little bit of plastic wrap over this, you can do so. I don't like to go like real heavy with this, or try to, you know, airlock the thing. I just want to keep it kind of, basically keep it a little bit on the moisture side, and this seems to help out a little bit. Do that, and I'm going to use some over on these little ones for the same reason. Oh boy, now look at this. I'm going to very gently pull that plastic up. It is doing beautiful. All right, and since the plastic's not sticking, I'm just going to keep using it. Here we have a little bit of light sticking, but not bad. Cool. So I can just leave that on there. I want to turn my oven on now. Since this is, all of it has easily doubled in bulk, I can let it rise a little more as the oven is heating, of course. 425 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay. So, wow, that just looks so good. And it's gotten so much bigger in that. I mean, it's filled all the way to the edge of the pan and is rising up on it. And that's going to look so nice once it's cooked. Also, these down here, the buns are coming along nice. Our little rolls are doing really nice there. And one of them is kind of small, but hey, I'm not really too worried about it. That was just to see what we can turn out on the side in addition to this. All right, it looks like these have risen up really well, so I'm going to get them in the oven. That'll work. All right, they are in the oven, and I'm starting my count up timer. Now, as far as how long do we bake these for? I don't know. We're inventing this right now as we go, remember? So probably 20 to 30 minutes in that zone. We'll see. Remember, you're working with a hot oven. It's 425 degrees. And so I've started a count up timer, and we'll be able to watch and see exactly how long it takes. I'm going to keep a close eye on these. And when they're the right color, which is a medium brown, and when you thump them, they have a nice sound. It's kind of a hollow sound. Then they're ready. And that's all you have to remember. So we started this recipe today with our onion. Now, I used 2 large shallots. And well, basically what I was looking for was somewhere between 1/2 to 1 cup of onion total when it was all cut up. I wanted 3 large cloves of garlic, which is what I used right there. Now, for the bread itself, I started with 4.5 teaspoons of yeast. That's equivalent to 2 packages. I like to use a fast rising commercial yeast for this. This is my salt, 2 teaspoons I used, 2 teaspoons of sugar with 5 cups of flour, 2 cups of water, and of course on that olive oil I used just enough to get everything cooked. I would say somewhere around 3 tablespoons, maybe just slightly more. Worked out great, and let's take a look at the final product now. Okay, I've just pulled these out of the oven. Now, my timer now says 21 minutes. I turned this off about 2 minutes after I removed these. So they were in there for 18.5, 19 minutes roughly. Got a beautiful, nice brown top on them. A little bit light on the bottom, but that's not a problem as long as it's cooked the right way. Now I'm going to let it sit in that skillet until the skillet cools down. Once it's cooled, that means my bottom crust is finished cooking and I'm ready to remove it. These things are already loose. They'll come right out. So it's just a matter of patience as the bottom cooks. All right. Oh. Very nice. And the aroma, oh, let me tell you, absolutely beautiful. I'm going to let that cool for just a little bit, and then we're going to slice into it, see what it looks like. All right, I think this is cooled enough to at least be handleable at this point. So what I'm going to do is just remove that pan rack. I was using that to cool it with, and we're just going to take a slice right into this. I'm going to cut right across here. Oh, look at that top crust. I already like the way it's acting. All right. Well, that's beautiful. So we got us some nice, very, very soft bread. Beautiful. This is going to be wonderful. I'm looking forward to some of this. Yeah. Enjoying that with with some, maybe some cheese. Ooh, do as a cheese toast. Oh, that'll taste so nice. There we have it. Well, there it is. We're all finished. The crumb on the inside looks nice. It's beautiful, and I'm just looking forward to digging in and tasting it. Well, that came out real well. That is delicious. Beautiful light flavor of the shallot and the garlic. They're there, trust me. That flavor's there. Oh, and it is just, it's not overwhelming, but it is good. Please enjoy this recipe. Thank you very much for watching. Please take a look right under this description box again. Links to my website, it's where you get Texas Cooking Today merch, as well as the recipes, and trust me, they're worth it. Also, please take a look at Patreon or Wisio if you're interested in helping out with Texas Cooking Today. And folks, thank you for watching. Please drop me a comment. If you haven't subscribed, please do, and click that bell. Click a thumbs up if you enjoyed this and enjoy this recipe. Have a good day. Oh yeah.